Hello and welcome to another beautiful time again. It's now time for us to get on the desk and see what is happening from Iran and Israel. A lot of you have been following everything happening, but then I think we need to do a little analysis of the economic implication of the Iran-Israel war as it is. My name is Ramsey, a special welcome to the desk today, and of course I have my guest joining me. Some persons by the United States of America, the striking of the three places by the United States. Are you also thinking about that? I will be joined by a political economist on the program this evening as we look at these issues back to back, the way it's happening. Well, joining me on the desk this evening is Adefolarin Olamilekan, a political economist. It's good to have you join us this evening, Olamilekan. Welcome to the desk.
Thanks for having me, Ramsey, and very good evening to all our viewers out there.
Well, so far so good. We are now having informations coming from the media. And of course, the media is only a medium transmitting, all right, what is happening around the world. We communicate it the way it is. The price of fuel is going to rise. It's already rising because the marketers are already saying, well, it's going to get to 1,000 naira. And of course, you know how it happens in Nigeria. The moment they hear anything about fuel, before it even gets started, already the price of fuel has gone up. Now, let's look at it critically.
Now, the tension is now gradually impacting negatively on the, I won't say negatively, because I'll put it into it, because positively is bringing more money into some people's pocket, and negatively is going to be taking money out of some people's pocket. In the essence that in the case of Nigeria, the federal government of Nigeria, as we speak right now, is making more money from crude oil export and crude oil sales. Brent crude oil is about $80 per barrel. OPEC basket crude oil is rising up to $78 per barrel. As the last time around 1:32 o'clock, that went through some of the review of the global oil price this morning. OPEC is about $78 and Brent is about $80. And there is projection that this could hit $100 before tomorrow evening on that respect. So it is quite a huge disappointment that the war is bringing on toll hardship, particularly globally, through the global oil price. The urban centers, like the Metama of this world, like the Asokoro of this world, like the Gwarinpa of this world, like all the areas that you know that the middle class and upper class live, there is a bit of sense that the economy is really working, because people are buying cars every day, people are building houses every day in Abuja and that's big city. So you can say that, okay, the economy, at least to an extent, to the 10%, the 15% of the population is affecting them properly. But to the other 40%, marginally it is affecting them. To the larger chunk of our population, about 55% of them, they are downtrodden, they have nothing to show for what the government is talking about, the stability, the strength, and the resourcefulness of the economy so far.
All right. For every war, there is this belief that some persons take advantage of the war, you know, war situations. And some persons, if you want to talk about war, they'll tell you, God forbid. Looking at what is happening between Iran and Israel right now, apart from Iran and Israel, you know, do you think this can affect other countries?
Definitely it will. For instance, the global oil price is already shaking. The shock, the uncertainty, the volatility, the various challenges that we normally see with the boost and boom of capitalism in the global oil sector is already here. As some countries are enjoying the bloat and the glut and the boom, other countries will be feeling it. For have you mentioned of Nigeria? Already the Nigerian physical oil revenue receipt is increasing. With a $75 per barrel now, is getting to $80, $100. So we're going to buy with excess crude oil account being going up or balloon up as a result of what government will be making. Although that will also be show up if our production can be increased, because we cannot leave out our oil production in this regard, because if we are producing less than 1.5 million barrels per day, we may not make much money as others who are also in the members of OPEC are making. But that doesn't say we are not going to make money, because our benchmark is $75. So anything above $75 is an excess and increased money to the government. But talk about the ordinary people. Here in Nigeria, we only have Dangote Refinery who is refining product for us. Others are still importing. So the translation and the transmission and the changes in the global oil price is now being translated to the local price of PMS diesel kerosene. And that's why I see that Nigerians are now seeing seeing the changes coming, or the effect coming from the global war.
The president in charge of maybe the president of Iran, or maybe the prime minister, whoever that is in charge right now, if you have the opportunity to address them, what will be your advice for this country as far as this war is concerned? It's escalating because of the intervention of the United States.
I think what is there is for us to understand what really triggered the war. I think over the last 20 years, there has been an issue that Iran is developing nuclear heads. They call it nuclear knocks, bombs that can blow up and can cause a lot of damages, just like what we have doing in Second World War, US and Japan, the Nagasaki bombing and the rest of them. So there is no powerful country like US and its G7 trust Iran to have nuclear weapons. So it has been on a round table negotiation that Iran stepped down your nuclear weapon, but all of a sudden it became something that was not well managed in terms of communication. I can remember when Ahmadinejad was the president of Iran. Even though Ahmadinejad was a very stubborn president, but he normally go into negotiation. But all of a sudden, after he left office, it was discovered that negotiation was not part of it. Although we will not isolate the nonchalant attitude of the U.S., in trying as much as possible to push Iran off to the wall and the rest of them. So all this accumulated in the idea that, okay, the only thing to get Iran out of way of nuclear development is to go into war. And for that matter, Israel was used as a proxy by the U.S. to go into the war, whereby they now started bombing each other. But the key message that is coming out is that Iran is now going back to the negotiating table. They're now discussing. I think the Iran head of ministers is in Europe. They are discussing and they are finding a way to bring back the negotiation, because it was a negotiation that sustained, that prevent this. This war would have been on since 10 years ago, but negotiation on the table with global nuclear agencies taking the lead and engaging in the rest of them. But the key message is that nobody wants to trust Iran with a nuclear weapon, because Iran is being seen as one of the biggest terrorist sponsors across the world. And Iran has proved that they are not. And a lot of us could also confirm that Iran may not be the biggest sponsor of terror, because all countries sponsor terror on the basis of what benefit them. US, as we see today, it could sponsor terror based on the basis of what it will favor them. So on the part of global political economy, we could understand the dynamics around this issue. And for me as a political economist, so understand the dynamics of global international political economy. It's all about the economic indicators and economic development around it, because it's all about economy. When you start a war with a country, it's about economy. So we must understand that.
All right. We must understand that. But then, U.S. intervention in the war, don't you think that's going to cause more problem? But what U.S. did was bombing the nuclear weapons site.
Exactly.
So what do you think about that intervention?
I think
is it that because some persons of the school of thought that U.S. is now supporting Israel with that action, but they just went to destroy the sites where these nuclear weapons are? I was wondering how they even got to know.
They have the spies, they have the intelligence. U.S. is the police of the world. It's the global police. They know. So there's nothing that anybody is doing as a state actor that U.S. is not aware of. You get it? They know everything that is going across the world. And why do you think that most of us still call that this global police of the U.S. is like harassing some countries to do what the U.S. wants? Because, and that's why I didn't mention that the global political economy or the global capitalism will make us understand why this war is existing. It's not just because they are fighting Iran or because of nuclear. It goes beyond that. And it is just for U.S. to hold on to the global economic power as the sole police of the world. And although they have been doing it to a greater extent to prevent Third World War, but we also know that it's been done for the selfishness of the United States, patriotic zeal, to be the global police of the world, and that is what it's been done. So for US to go and bomb those nuclear sites in those 3 locations, quite interesting. They are the one that discovered it. They are the one that told the world that this is where the site is. We could also recall that during Iraq period, when they also went to war with Iraq, we also saw that they did the same similar thing. But what Iran just need to come out is that Iran has not denied that they are not developing nuclear weapon, and that is the fact. They are not denied it, and that's why most people said, okay, even if you are developing it, and for Iran they said they are developing it for energy purpose. I think that has been their claim in the last 20 years, and many of us have to believe them because we saw that in Iran there was stable light. They use it for agricultural purposes, they use it for transport purposes, which they have used it. But the fear is that you can't trust them with those nuclear nukes because it can go away, and that is where the challenge is.
All right. When we're talking about global impact like this, first of all, my nation, my country first, I'm putting Nigeria first as a matter of fact. Yeah. Let's look at Nigeria right now. What a lot of people are excited about right now is, well, if Iran block where the crude, the oil, the fuel is being transported through, Nigeria will have upper hand because we're going to have a more demand. And the higher the demand, you are an economist, the more the profit. So as it is right now, apart from that, don't you think there is going to be an increase in the price of fuel in Nigeria as well? Because as we speak, there is an information coming up now that the price of fuel is going to get as high as 1,000 naira. And when you get for 1,000 naira, you will now think of how much these people who operate the pump, all right, the marketers, the filling station owners, you know, if it is 1,000 from the depot, then when they come out, you know how much they are going to sell. So now, what do you think of this impact on the average Nigerians, meaning the federal government, NNPC, and the rest of them, Dangote, will make more money. But then what about the average Nigerians? What's your thought about the situation right now? Because it is a ripple effect of what is happening between Israel and Iran.
Exactly. I think let's just use the example of what happened between Ukraine and Russia at that time. You know, one of the greatest products that was affected, flour. Bread price went up during the Ukraine war.
And it's still up till now.
Then after that, the next product that went up was iron ore. Iron, metal also went up. The another product that went so high was some material, gas particularly. Gas price
and
also
until now, it is still up.
So if you check those three products, now let's not check the Iran-Israel war. One of the biggest products that is going to have a very high price is the crude oil. But critically, let's speak critically to this situation. Do we supposed to suffer from such when we are crude here in Nigeria? But the problem is because we don't have enough refinery companies to be refining locally and supply the local demand. If the local refineries are working functionally, foreign national refineries are working functionally, and Dangote are working for, nobody will talk about the high price of PMS. And again, because we still depend on importation, about 50% of our consumption is being imported. Dangote is usually helping us to bridge the gaps of the 50%. The rest 50% is being imported. So it was just on the part of the Shylock marketers like Ipman and the rest of them who import PMS that they are going to be selling PMS at 1,000 naira per liter. And ask yourself, they are still selling the old stock in their filling station. They still have the old stock in what they call the depot. But guess what? The refined products are not coming from Israel or not coming from Iran. They are coming from Europe, and they are coming from majorly from Belgium. And the ship that will be supplying, that will be bringing PMS refined product, won't have any contact with the war. But the only issue that many of us have looked critically was that, okay, because of crude oil supply. But crude oil supply will only be isolated from Iran. Saudi Arabia is supplying crude oil. Qatar is supplying crude oil. Other members of OPEC, now far away from that region, that Middle East region, we're supplying crude oil. So how come this is now being factored as a result to now increase the price of PMS? Nothing more but the greed that capitalism have battered to us. And that's just it.
All right, that's just it. Now, do you think, from your own thought, your own school of thought right now, do you think the marketers, all right, and the game players are deliberately refusing the refineries from working for certain reasons? Because, like, I'm just talking, I'm just saying this, asking this question based on what you said.
Exactly.
That if we have our refineries working, we wouldn't feel the heat the way it is right now. We've had a lot of promises, all right? And what we are going through right now is as a result of policy.
Exactly.
So kind, you are, you use policies to do your analysis as a political economist. So what would you think about this? Is it that someone is interested in something somewhere, or you feel the policies just came and we found ourselves where we are?
I think practically it's about the mode of economic engagement that we have in the country. The government is not allowed or is not encouraged to be a full participant in the oil and gas sector. Why did I say so? If the government was allowed, like the likes of Iran, the likes of Saudi Arabia, their government is focused on oil and gas sector as a participant, not just as a regulator. In Nigerian case, the government is just a regulator. So that's why I see that the 4 refineries are not. If the government is a participant, is a real stakeholders in oil and gas sector, we will be producing our PMS, we will be producing our gear locally. The 4 refineries will be working without anybody mentioning anything. But because we have seen that government have no business in business. But in other climes, government have business in doing business. So in the oil and gas sector, as if I'm to put the question, answer straight to your question, is because the government is not participating fully as expected. And look at the policies that the government is putting out there. Look at the 9 years of this person that was in charge of NNPC, Melekare, or of his 8 years or 9 years that was there, with all the promises of making the refineries to work. And none of them never worked to optimally to the level that we want. So it wasn't the fault of anybody there, but it was the deliberate action of the Nigerian state to shy away from oil production, particularly refining. Even the exploration at the upstream, although we are talking about the downstream, midstream and downstream sector, the upstream himself, is the government participating? No. So that has been a challenge until the government find its footing to participate, to engage, and to be part and parcel of the stakeholder in refining. That's when we can have a steady supply of some of these refined products here in Nigeria. And the price will definitely work for us in that regard. Cheaper, or not cheaper, because if we say cheaper, it will look like it's a substandard product, but affordable prices for all Nigerians. That will not be saying because Iran is fighting, the crude oil price have gone up, then PMS will go up. In Saudi, has that really happened? Has that really affected? In Russia, has that really affected? In Angola, who is also a member of OPEC, because of the crude oil price, the only thing we understand is that the crude oil price is on its own, with other parameter that goes with it. But here in Nigeria, because we are not refining as much as we want to refine, definitely the price will go. Although someone will want to argue, like one of our colleague economists argued with me today, I said, no, you know that Dangote is bringing in about 5 million barrel of crude oil from other countries. I say, yes, we understand, but if we are able to supply him enough, or supply him for local consumption, because Dangote is not just refining for consumer locally alone, it's also exporting those products.
All right. We're majorly looking at oil now because, as a matter of fact, one of the first things that this war is going to affect is the oil, because of the statement that has been made about the blocking of the oil. Now, let's look at it critically right now, because we're looking at the implication of the Iran-Israel war on global economy, not just Africa alone, but then Africa is going to feel the heat. What do you think will happen to other countries, all right, that are not oil-producing countries? Nigeria, we're talking about 1 or 2 advantages, and maybe a soft pedal, all right, for Nigerians, because we are going to make some profit, because we are going to have some form of demand for the crude oil. What do you think will happen to other countries?
Actually, other countries, I believe their government will be more proactive than of Nigeria, because in other countries, not all countries that allow prices to just come from individuals who are Shylock profiteering individual. In Nigeria, everybody does anything they want to do. The marketers can come to them and fix their price. In other countries, take for instance in Cameroon, I can best assure you that in Cameroon, the price of litre will not add a dime, even with this crude oil challenge. Go to Ivory Coast, go to those francophone countries, including Benin Republic that is just close to, or Ghana here. The high price in crude oil will not affect the price of litre of PMS in their country. You know why? Because the government will monitor every individual. A friend was telling me this morning, I was saying that, what is FCCPC doing that Federal Consumer Protection Council, what are they doing at this point in time? The filling station will just come selling old stock with a new stock price. In all those African countries that I mentioned, their government will not allow that, even though there will be a significant change in the crude oil price abroad, but they will ensure that the local consumption is not affected the way we here in Nigeria will be affected. Just pass through 10 filling stations or 5 filling stations, you see different prices that everybody is fixing because of just the jack-nick approach, because they have heard that the crude oil prices have gone up. Then, majorly, as Riley pointed out in the question of, see, one of the things that are going to affect the global world is inflation. The world is going to suffer inflation deliberately as a result of the global oil crunch that we are facing right now. It's not crunch. It is not crunch per se, but it is crunch at the lower end because of the byproduct of the crude. But it's going to be a boom for people who produce crude oil, who deal with crude oil.
Like Nigeria, for instance.
Yes, but the greater challenge of the global world faces, there is going to be inflation. Already, the last inflation figure early January to now was less than 3.5% global inflation. But with this current challenge now, we could hit 4%.
The Israel-Iran war, whichever way you want to put it. But then, what are the global implications? Whether you like it or not, the war might not be happening in Africa, but we are connected in a way, and the impact is going to be felt by some countries. Some countries will feel it more, other countries will feel it a little bit, and some countries may not even feel it at all, according to my guess.
Do you know that global television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch global television real-time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to global television.
Welcome back from that break. It is still the desk, and on the desk tonight we are looking at the Israel-Iran war. What are the global implications? Now let's get to the financial market right now. Do you think this will have any impact on the financial markets?
Definitely it will. And I'm starting from a U.S. financial market, the stock market, talking about the Tokyo stock market, the Chinese stock market, and the Europe stock market. Already the work is already affecting. And someone would ask, how will it affect? Because investors will be looking for opportunity to put their money where it is safe. If the U.S. go into war today, it means that the government will be borrowing more, and a lot of people may want to put their money in that regard through the bonds paper of the government of the U.S. But on the other low side is the developing economy market like Nigeria. So you ask yourself, what will happen to Nigerian stock market? Already in the last 10 years, we have seen stability in Nigerian stock market. Like today's bearing, like today's sharing on Nigerian stock market, we show a bullish outcome. We show there's positive gains on Nigerian stock market. But with the war going on, with the tension going on, both in the Ukraine, Russia own, as well as the Israel, Iran own, with the annexation of US also participating, there could be a change in terms of where investors want to put their money. But we have been rest assured that the Nigerian stock market is quite stable. But linked to that is the Forex Naira stability. And we are seeing that positively because of the gain that is coming to the US dollar. It also, verb on Nigerian dollar and Naira to the point that Naira was able to gain 2 Naira today against the US dollar, exchanging at 1,547 Naira. That unlike what we saw over the weekend where we have Naira exchanging. This is official price. I'm not talking of black market because we have to deal with official price when we are talking about this global aspect. 1,547 Naira as of today. But we don't know what will happen tomorrow. But the gains is there. And the stableness of Naira has also shown. But a lot of analysts are pointing to the fact that as long as US economy, US engagement and involvement in this war is there, the US dollar may suffer a bit in case there's a retaliation, because the retaliation will involve the US government will need to spend more money, and that may affect the dollar. And that affecting dollar, it may strengthen the naira appreciation against dollar, because what it means is that the more the US government go into panic arrangement of their dollar, definitely other foreign currency will be stabilizing and be gaining, particularly local currency in the developing countries like Nigeria. So those are the perspectives that we need to understand. Apart from the oil glut talking about the price of crude oil that's going up, and apart from the gains that will come to countries who produce this crude oil, the financial market also will have to be shaken in that regard. The stock market particularly, the equity market particularly are also involved, as well as the commodity market will also be involved in this. Then let's not talk about the effects, the exchange globally. Naira will be strengthened. The more the US go into this war, Naira will definitely get a grip of appreciation against the US dollar. But if it happens that the war is not escalating, it's not going anywhere, then Naira have to be doing all the gymnastics that Dr. Yemi Kadusa has been putting in line to ensure Naira is stabilized. But we just hope that the war will not be escalated. It can it can come to an end on a round table for both Iran, Israel, and US, so that this nuclear stuff they are talking about, let us just end it on the round table, and that would be good for the global economy and better for Nigerian economy as well. And many Nigerians who are hoping that they don't want price of PMS to go up, definitely they have a sign of relief if the war stop at this point in time.
All right, let's look at the place of import and export as far as this conflict is concerned right now. Because I tell people all the time that there is no country that is independent. All right, that's why we'll work out for international relations, diplomatic relations, bilateral relations and all of that. What effects, all right, do you think this war will have on import and export for people who are into international trade, countries who depend on international trade?
I think to start with, the major product that is coming from the Middle East is crude. And it's coming from Saudi, it's coming from Iran. Israel doesn't produce crude, but they produce agricultural product, they produce food. So you could say that the food supply chain, global food supply chain could be disrupted from that angle. Now, to other countries like Asia, definitely there could be another issue within the Chinese corridor, sea part coming down to Africa or part of the other part of the world. Definitely there could be a challenge in that regard also. But we hope that this will not be escalated, because the more the war gets escalated, the more it becomes a challenge. But what we cannot take out is that, one, global oil price is increasing. Supply of crude oil will be disrupted one way or the other, but not entirely, because the one that is coming from Iran will be disrupted. Then there will be a bit of slow movement of ship from Saudi, from Qatar, from UAE, and the rest of those Arab countries that produce crude oil. That's on one hand. On the part of Europe, we may not have much challenge with Europe, because the war in Ukraine and Russia has already been stepped down a little. So that's why we have stability in the export of flour and the rest of them. Then for China, that remains the biggest trading partner of most African countries for products like Nigeria. There could be a little bit of challenge of movement of ship here and there, but not as dangerous as the one that is coming from the Middle East. So gradually, or with a bit of understanding, we're going to have a bit of depreciation in export of trade coming from all those countries, but largely from Iran, which is one of the biggest producers of crude oil, and that's where we have issue.
Do you think this fight, in a way, this war can affect international relations? Because let me tell you the truth, U.S., all right, during this strike at these three sites, some persons are not quite cool with it. As a matter of fact, some persons were even saying this is already escalating to a religious war somehow. But I'm so excited. Why? Because there is a little interest for peace negotiation. But now, do you think war situations such as this can have impact, either positive or negatively, on international relations, because some persons are like taking side right now. Well, I'm supporting Iran because of my religious background. I'm supporting Israel because of my religious background, especially in Nigeria and other countries. There is this mentality, there is this belief. So I want us to look at how this mentality and of course this intrusion can affect international relations. And positive or
I think
negative.
for me, from my understanding of the entire thing, as I earlier pointed, is the war is about economy. Who owns the largest nuclear head? And if you have the largest nuclear head, that means you can determine how the economy of the world will be shaped. It has nothing to do with religion. Anybody that is trying to say I'm supporting, it's just sheer ignorance on their part. They don't even know anything about the religion that these countries are practicing. You get it? Especially for Africans who are practicing any of the world religion. Do they really know where the religion comes from before they start practicing? So for me, it's about shared lack of knowledge on their part or lack of understanding on their part. And for these two countries, they know themselves. They know themselves very well. They know that it is not about religion. They know that it is just about the nuclear head. Who owns the largest nuclear head? Control the economy of the world. And that is, it's about economy. It's not about who you believe and who you pray to. No, that's nothing to do with that. And it's an opportunity for us to share understanding that this war has something to do with religion. You ask yourself, why can't the Saudi Arabians speak up against Iran? Well, why can't they speak in support of them? Why can't Qatar speak in support of them? You get it? Why are some Africa countries that are also practicing Christianity, why can't they speak up for Israel? It is not religion. It is sheer understanding that this has to do with economy, purely economy. And if you understand that, you understand everything that is going on around the world. But if you don't understand what is happening around the world, you will think that it's all about, it's not religion. It is just a sheer, we need to understand that it is about economy. If US can be global police and control the nuclear nukes across the world, it means that it control everything that happens in the world. Have you forgotten African command that they established here in Africa? They established all manner of military zone across the world to just be the custodian of global police, and that's what they are doing, and that's what they are effecting. But the other side is that they are going extremely far to the point that, harassing Iran, that don't do it. And Iran, having the technology, is to their greatest benefit. I said it earlier. They use it for energy. They use it for transportation. They use it for agriculture. And it has helped them. But countries who don't know how to use it, US will not want you to have it. Like Nigeria, we have a nuclear site in Benue State. The day we want to reactivate that nuclear site, what do you think will happen?
Okay, there is a nuclear site.
Yeah,
Are you citing an instance? Or?
We have it. We developed it since the 70s. Here in Benue State. In Nigeria, we have a nuclear site that Nigerian government want to use nuclear purpose for nuclear energy. Germany using it as electricity supply. Even European countries are using it. But the issue is that America doesn't want such to be in the hand of a friend that you cannot trust. And that friend is Iran. They don't trust Iran. That's why they are asking them not to have it.
All right, that's why they don't want them to have it. That's, well, going to be the size of the discussion. But finally, before I let you go, as it is right now, what do you think? What role with this kind of situation? First of all, you said something while we were talking. You said some countries will not get a pinch of the impact of this war as it has to do with oil, because the government will ensure that the pump price of oil is intact. Then coming to Nigeria, what would you have to say to the federal government of Nigeria right now as it has to do with ensuring that the impact of this war doesn't tell so much on Nigerians, especially now that there is hunger in the land as a result of some policies? Exactly.
What we'll be looking at is the price of pump price of PMS. If it goes up, transportation goes up. If it goes up, it affects food supply. If it goes up, it affects every other thing around us. It affects services, it affects provision of any emergency that you want to provide for the people. Definitely the government have to sit tight and engage. But on the part of Nigeria, the government doesn't have much power for control of prices. And that's why at this point...
But why is it like that? Is it that they don't have the power or they refuse to do it? Because you talked about the Federal Consumer Protection.
How far can they go? the thing is, we are not talking deep critical political economy of Nigeria. If we are talking deep critical political economy of Nigeria, first thing I will first tell you is that the Nigerian state is very authoritarian, and the Nigerian state is also very lacking the understanding of what it means to ensure that their people get the basic amenities or basic things of life, because they are not participating in the business. They allow all manner of people to just form association, become importers, and just to be collecting fees, charges, levies.
So that's what the government is interested.
So when you are collecting charges, levies from people, the people will do whatever they want to do, and that's why the likes of Ipman and the rest of them who are importing fuel into the country will be selling old stock with a new stock price at the PMS retail outlet. Which government will allow that? Immediately it happens, to push out a notice out and tell them. That's why I mentioned Cameroon, I mentioned all those African. You can't do it. You must sell the old stock with the old price, not use old stock with a new price. Although some of them will claim that they want to raise capital, and that's what brings about accumulation of wealth unimagined around people. You just see a businessman started business today, all of a sudden he's a turned billionaire. You ask how? Because he has shortchanging people, and what they will be doing to this challenge that we are faced right now globally, because the outlet retailers of PMS will be shortchanging Nigerians with their PMS price at the outlet. That's what we will and the government can do much. And you also ask us, who owns those filling stations? By the way.
All right.